You know what's funny? I was just realizing that I don't think anybody who subscribes to me on this channel knows my name. Just because like I don't say my name. Like my channel name is not my name. It's Loser's Library, which is supposed to be a sort of like an endearing self-deprecation thing. But yeah, I don't think anyone knows my name. Which is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. It's like I'm here, but I'm also anonymous, you know? My name is, it means God answers prayers in Igbo. Cool fun fact about me. Comment below if you want to know my name. But I think something more important about me that some people may not know is that I'm I don't want to say obsessed, but I'm like kind of fixated on clowns a little bit. I spent $10 on this. Do you guys think it was worth it? Famously, I have a clown wall right off camera that you can't see where I post pictures of clowns. I mostly like sad clowns, not really scary clowns. One day I'll show you guys my clown wall. But maybe you should know my name first, right? Hey suckers. Today's gonna be a little bit of a casual video. I'm feeling casual. This is gonna be basically like mostly like a 2-month, technically 3-month wrap up of all the books that I've read in the past 3 months, because I haven't really been talking about all the books I've been reading in lieu of doing like single review videos. In between all those books that I did single reviews for, I have like 9 or 10 other ones that have just not even gotten to see the light of day. I was gonna like write notes about all the books so I can like refresh my memory. I think I'm just gonna wing it. Super quickly, I'm gonna go through the books that have been read in these past 3 months that I've already done reviews for. So you guys have probably already seen. But for those who haven't, we're gonna do a little bit of a speed round of those books. If they sound interesting to you, you can go watch my full review. We're gonna start with Labyrinths by Jorge Luis Borges. Freaking loved this. Blew my mind. I was like in a daze for days after I finished this. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Go read it. This is a short story collection by an Argentinian writer who writes these kind of really introspective, trippy, surrealist stories that are tied in with like philosophy and the meaning of human life. Go read it, please. Literally, I think I like fell in love. I read The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, and it was also freaking amazing. 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this one. Existential, is existential the right word? Philosophical murder mystery. 14th century Italian Abbey. Great characters. Really unlike a lot of things I've read. Amazing, go read it. Last book that I read, I literally threw away already because I hated it so much. And it was Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. I don't want to call it a hate review, but I did like already like a single video review about what I thought about this book. And if you watch that, you know I really didn't like it, to the point where I like threw it off my shelves. Like there's very few books that I'll read and be like, I'm just getting rid of this because I don't even want it in my vicinity. And that was one of them. So God bless. That's the speed round version. The rest will spend like a teeny bit more time on, just because like I said, they haven't seen the light of day. What are you guys currently reading right now? I want to know. I want to know what you people are reading. I want to know like what sphere and what realm and what universe y'all have been visiting. I love peering into other people's lives. I mean, that's why I like reading. I'm currently reading Titus Groan, which is the first book in the Gormenghast trilogy. It's kind of centered around this very big mammoth of a castle and all these very distinct weirdo characters that inhabit this castle, and it's kind of unlike anything I've picked up. I'm giving it a thumbs up so far. Y'all, you wouldn't believe this. You wouldn't believe this. let me just start talking about the books here. I read like a comic book. I really, really, really want to read more comic books, or I want to be more in tune with the world of graphic novels, because I think it's an amazing art form. I like, my other hobby that's not reading is drawing, and I had this like highfalutin time when I just really want to draw a comic, but I really don't have the kind of skill set to do that like at all. But I dreamed about it. Just know that I've dreamed about it. So I really have not really ventured into the world of graphic novels. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I read Watchmen. Watchmen was so amazing. I still think about Watchmen to this day. And then I've read like Mouse. Just, y'all, this is embarrassing. It's like this, just the big hitters. I've read the big hitters. So I've read Watchmen, I've read Mouse 1 and Mouse 2. I haven't even read Persepolis, but I have both volumes over there on the other side of my room. And then I've read some Harvey Pekar. But yeah, I just have not ventured into this world, mostly because they're very expensive and you can read them in an hour. But anyway, I read this one. It's called The New World. And what really attracted me to this was that the main character was a black girl with natural hair, and her love interest was like an Asian guy. And I thought, you know, some representation out here. So this is kind of a very basic dystopian setup. We're in the future. There's been a war. Society has now been like, has like a new regime kind of ruling over them. There's something called the New California. They've split up the United States into like 3 sections. There's this one place called the New California, which is where all this takes place. Y'all, there was a lot going on in this book, and I mostly thought the pictures were really pretty. I'm just gonna say that. The story was very, very basic, kind of like dystopian YA setup. There was the girl main character who was like the daughter of the president. It's like, you know, it's just, I don't know. And then this guy who's kind of like a rebel, and their love story was like basically non-existent. They like saw each other at a club, and then like the next day they were like running away together. It was very just like giving nothing. The story was just very, very basic, like kind of bare bones dystopian. We're gonna rebel, we're gonna run away, I'm the president's daughter, you're a rebel, we don't belong together, but I'm rebelling against a society who wants to oppress me, type of thing. She's also a cop though. She's like this TV cop, which I kind of thought was the most interesting aspect of the story. She's like a TV cop who like daily route was like filmed, and then people could vote about what they wanted to be done to the criminals that she caught. And her big like rebellion was refusing to kill people when like the public audience would vote that the criminal should be like executed. I don't know, it was very like hoorah. It was very like, you know, y'all know what this means, you know, like, but I'm different. I know I'm the president's granddaughter, but I don't kill people, even though like I directly have lived my life benefiting from my position of power. Like, also, I don't do that though. The art was really good. The pacing was like super weird. Like I said, they fell in love in about 3 seconds flat. This panel was really cool. Yeah, I think I gave it like a 2.5. I read it in like half an hour and I enjoyed it, you know, but I'm just not gonna be like touting this as the next best thing. It was no Watchmen, you know what I'm saying? And I thought, you know, just because I'm not used to reading comic books, maybe that's why I'm thinking the pacing is so weird, but I never thought the pacing was weird in Watchmen, and I never thought things were going too fast. I just felt a little rushed. Like I said, the art was great. All right, I read some Warsan Shire. I saw another booktuber. What's her name? Is it Books by Lanes? Books by Lane. She's this black girl from Germany. You may have not seen her videos. But anyway, I saw her talking about this, and she's really praising it. And the next day I happened to see it, like at my library bookshop. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like fate. So I bought it. It's called Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth. It's a collection of poetry. Apparently, Warsan Shire have been featured in some of like Beyonce's music videos or something. I'm not a Beyonce fan, believe it or not. Like, I've never liked Beyonce. I just never have, you know, shoot me dead. So Warsan Shire is a Kenyan-born Somali poet, and this collection features a lot about immigrants, like kind of like the immigrant experience, and women, which was really intriguing. Particularly one poem in this, I felt, I don't know, so close to the struggle that it must be to immigrate to a new country. Like, I literally moved states and I've been homesick ever since. Like, so I can't imagine how it feels to move to a different country across the world with a completely different culture and language. Like, I literally cannot tap into this emotion, but I feel like Warsan Shire gave me just a glimpse of what this type of angst and kind of pain would feel like, particularly when you're not just an immigrant, but you're like a refugee, which is kind of this whole other side of the coin, if you will. And that one was called Conversations at Home at the Deportation Center. Just some amazing lines in here. I tore up an 8-month passport in an airport hotel. I am bloated with language I cannot afford to forget. A couple of these actually gave me chills. And then another one that I thought was just so powerful. You know, while I was reading this collection, I was kind of getting irritated about some of the women that are featured in these poems, because I was like, oh my gosh, I just wanted them to like stand up. Like, I just felt some of them were so weak. And I think weak might be the wrong word in the context of like these poems, because it is a very like feminist collection, and that was kind of the point of the poems, which I was kind of being too stupid to understand when I was like first going through it the first time. A lot of these women haven't really been taught or empowered to stand up for themselves or to stand up, and some of their circumstances in a lot of ways didn't allow them to stand up, as I so casually say, like, oh, stand up, woman. And that's kind of the point of the collection, like the whole title, Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth. One poem here that I thought was so poignant, I think it's called The Kitchen, and it's about this woman who's making dinner for her husband, and he like walks into the kitchen and she knows that he's just like been with another woman, or he's like been cheating on her, you know. And it's like this weird juxtaposition of like love and hatred kind of boiling up as she like just continues to make dinner for him, even as he comes up behind her and starts like kissing her neck and grabbing her waist, and she's like is like making dinner, and she's like stopping to talk about like how he's touching her, and then goes back to like what spices she's using to cook and comparing it to this woman who she knows she's been with. And it's crazy. It really is crazy. It gave me like chills when I read it. The last line particularly really just shook me. But it was an amazing collection. A couple of them really didn't hit with me. I think there's just more history that I need to know, the history of Kenya, Somalia, and all these kind of places that I just don't know about. Very impressed. Very impressed. I recommend it. I read Joy, Pennsylvania by, I was gonna say one of my most beloved authors, but this is only the second book I'm reading, or third book I'm reading by him. And the first one I really loved. The second one was kind of a miss for a couple reasons, and then this one was just a hard no. And I hope, for the love of peace, that Steven Sherrill doesn't somehow find this video, because I'm about to like tear this book to shreds. Not tear it to shreds, but I was really didn't like this. And I'm saying I hope it doesn't somehow find this video because like one of the first videos I made on this channel, where I'm like painting my face like a sad clown and like talking about weird books, I reviewed his favorite of mine, which is The Minotaur Takes a Cigarette Break, and he somehow found it, and then he commented, and we like had a little back and forth really quick. And I told him that I was planning to work through his bibliography, and you know, I kept my word. But I kind of regretted this one. So just because I want him to have good memories of me, like praising the Minotaur, I don't want him to see what I'm about to do here. So Steven, if you're somehow watching this, just look away. So I read Joy, Pennsylvania. This book follows primarily 3 characters, okay? My understanding going into this book was just kind of like a dark look at an extremely gritty, dysfunctional family. And in many ways it was that. And maybe I just wasn't expecting it to be this intense. Intense is not the right word. Okay. So basically we are looking at a family who lives in this crumbling, decaying town. It's described as the post-industrial era. They are facing the realities of working class poverty in this super small, almost ghost town that has like 1 factory in it, and like 1 factory, 1 grocery store, this type of stuff. Like you're kind of exuding the vibe of like what's going on. And they're really, really, really poor. We have a kid, we have a mother, and we have a father, and we're reading sections from each of their perspective of like what's going on in their family. Basically, this is just a super stark, kind of repulsive look into a family that is not just dysfunctional. This family is more than dysfunctional. This family is like, every single person needs like serious clinical help, like to an extreme degree. Not even like, you need a retreat, girl, you're just stressed out from family life, you need to, you know, just learn to center. Like, no, these people need to be medicated and live in a home, like every single one of them. And I don't even say that in a very negative way, like as someone who has been on like pharmaceutical drugs and stuff for like mental stuff. Like, I'm not bashing that lifestyle. I'm just saying this family was more than dysfunctional. And I feel like the downfall of this book was that the Minotaur, I mean, Steven writes like sad books. Like, I can give that to him, and I like sad books. But this was just kind of like despicable to me. And I think the downfall was that like, opposed to like The Minotaur Takes a Cigarette Break, which is a story centered around a very sad, broken character, but someone who is still somehow like redeemable and still gritty, but not like I'm licking the gutter. This felt like I was just licking the gutter. I had no ground to stand on when it came to this story. They have a young child, I think he's 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that, who was like so extremely neglected and abused that it was just like too much for me, to the point where like everybody is pushed to the brink of insanity. And when I say insanity, I don't mean just like acting out. Like, these people they all need, like I said, serious clinical help. And I had no ground to stand on. I had no vantage point of like where I could like find compassion to like look at this family through, especially with the kid in this being like so neglected and abused, that I just was like, I could not find it in my heart to like even have sympathy for the parents, just because it's a kid. No platform to be able to see a reality of how this family actually was functioning, but also a place where I could like have compassion for them and see their struggles. Like, I was just kind of just disgusted throughout this whole thing. And I could not, I cannot think of a book in the recent past that I was so eager to finish. And like, I mean, there was a couple points where I was just like, I'm just not even gonna read this anymore. I don't see I don't understand what Steven was getting at in this book. Like, I don't understand what he wanted me to understand. It seems just like it was just way too much. It was just horrible. There was nothing redeeming about anybody. There was the father, he's like a veteran. The mother is a religious freak who's kind of been taken into some cult, and then a kid who's abused, and you just kind of delve deeper and darker into this absolute disgusting mess, and I did not enjoy it. There was nothing for me to learn. Like Steven, I don't get it. It was very hard. Just too much, and also not enough. So yeah, that was Joy, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about some big hitters here, y'all. I read like some contemporaries. So I read Leave the World Behind. So this book follows a family. I thought the premise of this was absolutely like so intriguing. It just felt like it was me, and that's basically what made me pick up this book. A family rents an Airbnb to take a little vacation. You know, they're kind of like an average family. One works in an office, the other's like an editor or like a writer or something for a magazine, and they have two, you know, perfectly normal children, and they're going on vacation, you know, just to get a break. And a kind of this remote house in the kind of country. They're from New York City, and they just want a little bit of a, like, you know, a little bit of a refresher. They rent this Airbnb, and kind of just when their stay starts beginning, the owners of the Airbnb pop up out of nowhere, knock on the door, and say like, hey, sorry, we know you rented this place out, but we have nowhere to go right now because something bad is happening in the city. Nobody knows exactly what. All we kind of know is that there's been a huge power outage, and the rest of the story is kind of laced with this like suspicion and tension of like what's actually going on out there, because no one's really connected to like what's going on in the city. Who's telling the truth, who's lying? Can they trust the people who apparently own this Airbnb, which is just like this black couple. One thing I did not like about this is that from what I saw, a lot of this was like kind of mentioned to kind of deal with the race issue, because it's a white family, and the family who owns the Airbnb, or this couple, is black. And very kind of like weirdly throughout the story, the fact that they're black would come up in just the most odd places in like the thoughts of the characters, and would never go anywhere, and then he'd mention it like super slightly again and just never go anywhere. And I was just like, if you're gonna talk about race, then talk about race. If you're not gonna talk about race, then like don't talk about race. And it just felt kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like very unfinished and weird. I saw a lot of people complaining about the language used in this book. They thought it was just too much, and he's just trying to show how smart he is. And I thought the complete opposite. Actually, I think the best thing, especially when this book first started, I think it fell off towards the end for real. But when it first started, like, the language was what drew me in. Even the first beginning paragraphs are just, Rumaan Alam, I hope I'm saying his name right, has a very distinct writing style that I thought was really kind of jarringly beautiful. I don't know how to explain it other than his writing made me feel like I was watching almost like sci-fi. It gave me like sci-fi vibes, but in this kind of like, I feel like I was like watching like an animatronic family in a good way. The way he would describe things, I just thought was so jarringly beautiful and weird, and people were complaining about that, which is interesting because it was the best part of what the story was. Eventually I gave this like less than 3 stars, and ultimately meaning I don't think it was worth the time that I spent reading it. You couldn't see anything. The trees were that full. Signs warned of deer, idiotic and inured to the presence of humans. They strutted into the streets confidently, wall-eyed and therefore blind. You saw their corpses everywhere, nut brown and pneumatic with death. Oh, I loved it. I really loved it. The writing fell off after like the first third of the book, and it just became this super I don't mind books where nothing happens, because I know other people were complaining about that too. They're complaining about the language and the fact that nothing happens. Both things suited me very well. I think what threw me off about this book was that the themes felt unfinished. The story started dragging out towards the end, and I was like, all right, to what end? To what end? And the ending was interesting. It just, I don't know. The book ended up falling flat. The characters were super annoying. I just couldn't really care about them. They were very like selfish. I understand that we're in a fearful situation here because we don't know what's going on. There's an outage. They're suspecting a terrorist attack. A lot of things were going on, but something about them just was so. They started like, I felt like he started off with a good portrait of them, and eventually they were just like kind of like nothing characters. Like I think I've forgotten like 75% of their names already because they just didn't mean anything to me, and they were very non-distinct in a bad way. The bulk of this could have been so much better, but I just feel like he kind of got lost in the sauce, and I ended up just like not feeling it. It was an interesting premise though. I feel like it could have been great. I feel like there was a point like in the first third of this book that I was like, wow, this is gonna be a great one, and it couldn't finish the job. So sorry. All right, y'all, I'm gonna talk about this one briefly because I mentioned this like months and months ago, that I was currently reading Oblivion by David Foster Wallace, and I had only read like 2 of the stories in here, and then I just never mentioned it again. I just want to say that I loved it, or that's kind of a lie. The stories that I loved in here, I not only love, but like obsessively love. And the stories that I did not like in here were like basically repulsive to me, which is so interesting. David just has this, it's so funny because people always talk about how polarizing David Foster Wallace is, but not only is he like polarizing to individuals, he's polarizing to me as an individual, because I felt the same way about the story collection as I felt with Hideous Men, which is that some of them were so spot on and so jarring and so emotionally affecting that I will think about them for years, and the other ones were so bad. You know what I'm saying? It's just so weird. It's hit or miss. But the stories that I do love from him always make through, sludging through whatever kind of muddled story that I didn't like, worth it. Like, it just makes it worth it. Good Old Neon, I've been thinking about for months since I finished this collection, which somebody mentioned in the video where I said I was currently reading this. They quickly mentioned Good Old Neon, and they're like, that story makes me cry every time. And I was like, okay, he kind of hyped it up for me. And I was like, let's see what this is all about. And yeah, it was totally worth the hype. My favorites of the collection were Mr. Squishy, Incarnations of Burned Children, Good Old Neon, which was hands down my favorite, Philosophy and the Mirror of Nature. And I was kind of iffy on the title story of Oblivion. The other ones, The Soul is Not a Smithy, Another Pioneer, and The Suffering Channel. I hated The Suffering Channel. Can I talk about how much I hated The Suffering Channel? But once again, David Foster Wallace does again. He captures the essence of my soul, and he puts it in a bottle, and he spoon feeds it to me. And you know what? I go through an identity crisis every couple months about loving David Foster Wallace so much because of his demographic of readers and kind of the reputation of the people who love him so much. But I can't help it. It's just the truth. I love him. Yeah, read it. Read it. Or at least read the ones I mentioned, sucker. Okay. Well, let's talk about, y'all, another like popular contemporary release. Like, what am I doing? Who am I? I read Where the Crawdads Sing. What do I have to say about this book? So the movie's like coming out like tomorrow or something. I'm supposed to go see it with my friend. I'm about to text her. But I really hate the marketing that they're doing for this movie. I just hate it. Like, especially on TikTok. They're doing some weird stuff on TikTok to advertise this movie. Like, trying to like make Gen Z want to watch it with these weird like POV type of stuff. I don't know. And like, the more trailers I see for it, the less I want to actually watch it. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. It was perfectly fine, beautiful even in some areas, but not exceptional. this kept getting compared to To Kill a Mockingbird, which I was like so confused. Like, just because there's like a young girl who lives in the South is the main character, and she's like in marshland. We were like, oh my god, it's like so reminiscent of To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, it really wasn't at all. Fun fact, my dog's name is Atticus, half based on the fact that of Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. The other half was based on something else. But yeah, fun fact about me. Yeah, so we have this girl. She has a super jacked up family life. She's dirt poor, like poverty, eating like mush for breakfast every day type poor. And she basically, from a very young age, gets abandoned by her whole family and is left to live in the marshland all on her own. And this is kind of like a murder mystery slash romance type of thing. There's like a love triangle going on here. Basically, in the nearby town, the body of like a very popular jock character is found, and guess who's suspected? It's the Marsh girl. Like I said, it was kind of a very basic story. A couple things really kind of pissed me off a little bit about the author, because her name is Delia Owens. Here she is. She looks pretty cool. She's really pretty and all that. And she has like a bachelor's in zoology, and she has been like awarded for her nature writing. That is really the strong point of this book. And if you're going to read this book, I don't know if it's going to be for the plot. I don't know if it's going to be for the romance. It should be for the nature writing in this book, because it really, I think it carried. It really did carry. She made me want to be in the marshland. Absolutely beautiful, lyrical descriptions of landscape, plants, animals, atmosphere, sky, in kind of a way that I haven't read in a while. I think the last time I read something kind of even in that vein was on Walden by Thoreau, so let that say what that needs to say, but it really did carry. Other than that, I thought the main character, this Marsh girl, her name's Kaya, was a really good protagonist. I really did feel for her, like truly, like I felt like she was real a lot of the times, and I felt like she was fleshed out. And for everything that I felt about her, the opposite was true for all of her counterparts in the story. Her love interests, and every other side character was so half-baked, Every side character fully felt like a pawn, just like put in the story so that Kaya could interact with them, and then they're just kind of brushed aside again until, of course, Kaya needs to interact with them. Then they're put in there. Even when it came to her love interest, like I knew absolutely nothing about them. I just know that they think Kaya's pretty and they're in love with her. Even the other important characters, like this black couple who kind of like takes her under their wing when she's completely abandoned and makes sure that she doesn't starve to death, is like very much just, I hate that. I want my characters to be fleshed out, and I want them to be full in every sense of the word, the same way that Larry McMurtry did in Lonesome Dove. Every character got his or her spot fully fleshed out and felt real. Oppositely, she kind of didn't do well in that area, so that's why it kind of just lowered the whole experience for me. I will be shamelessly going to go see the movie. But yeah. And also, she did this thing that I was really kind of annoyed with, especially because Delia Owens is an older woman. I felt like she should have known better than this. They kind of had a couple Kaya's not like other girls moments, which are just so overly played out and overdone. But I think there was literally like almost verbatim a scene in here where like one of her guys that was crushing on her was like, all other girls care about is like hair and makeup, but Kaya's different. She's so different, and everybody else just puts on makeup. It's like, oh yeah, and you're a real stunner, Mr. 19-year-old dating a 14-year-old girl in the marsh with absolutely no family who completely relies on you for human interaction. You're the cool one, not all those losers who put on makeup from your high school. Like, not giving. And I'm like, girl, I know you did not just do all that. And she did. It was still a good book, though. It was worth the time I spent reading it. I need to make that clear. Because the thing that makes a book, like, lower than 3 stars is, like, it's not even worth picking up. Like, whatever beautiful language in here was not worth it. The story was not worth it. This was worth it. It just wasn't exceptional. Just putting that out there. All right. I got more to talk about. I'm, like, tired. All right. I read, this is like my favorite poetry collection that I've read in the past, like, am I about to say year? In the past year? I don't know. I haven't been reading a heck of a lot of poetry. But I read Rotten Perfect Mouth by Ava HD. And I fell in love. And so there was this one particular night I spent just hours sitting and reading this book in this little room deep late into the night, even though I had to get up in like a couple hours for work. And I think I've read this thing through twice now since I've got it. This collection was so raw to me. I just love the way that Ava talks about things. There's a lot of subject matter kind of vast throughout this. It has to do with family, with traveling, with kind of like the little moments of life, but explained in this very expansive, all-encompassing way, which I loved. And I marked so many poems. One of them that was really particularly touching to me was called Fireworks and Fire Ants. And it seems like it's describing like either like a 4th of July party or like a New Year's Eve party. And they're talking about all these people who are like gathering and having this seemingly kind of beautiful, fun time. And she adds in this like layer of sadness and of longing and of grief that they're all also somehow experiencing together in this joyous moment. And I've read that one a million times, as much as I've read Bone Dog, I think. And this thing just hit. It hit in all the right places. I think she's amazing. And I literally cannot wait to read this collection again, even though I've already read it twice. And I bought it like 2 months ago. I loved it. All right, lastly, just another poetry collection. I'm just gonna go through this quickly because I've been talking too much. It's called The Chameleon Couch by, oh my God, I'm about to butcher this name. Yusef Komunyakaa, okay? I thought this collection was good, not great, and I'll tell you why. The first poem in this collection is called Canticle. And something about this poem right here captured my soul. I didn't even continue reading the rest of the poems until I think I had read this one about 5 times. It's this kind of beautiful, kind of like tortured love story. But not all these poems were really accessible to the average reader, I think. And it's even kind of mentioned on the back where it says, the reverence and the gravity of many of these poems in this collection can be overwhelming for a light-hearted reader, but the author uses love to lift the spirits. And I'm like, he kind of did. I think you can see I did mark some, and I'm planning to go back in this collection. But as someone who's not versed in classical history, as someone as embarrassing as this who's never read the Iliad or the Odyssey, there was a lot of references, especially later on in the collection, that I was just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I even saw a lot of people complaining about the same thing on Goodreads. They're like, we get it, you're smart, we get it, you're versed in classical history. And maybe that was, you know, just, it kind of missed me on that level. Maybe once I am eventually caught up on all that stuff, which I plan to be. I plan to read the Odyssey, okay, how could I not? I plan to read the Iliad, how could I not? I'm just not there yet. So maybe once I've entered that realm, you know what's funny? I literally have a dictionary of like classical mythology somewhere in my room on that shelf that I use to reference things because so much of literature is really steeped in the mythology that I'm not versed on. So I have that to sometimes catch up on certain moments in time and in books. I was using it just recently while I was reading Borges because Borges was smart and he knew all the stuff that I didn't know, and it really did help open my eyes. A couple of like key moments in stories I'm like, oh, I totally get what you're happening to. But you know what would be better than having a dictionary of classical mythology would be actually knowing classical mythology. So one of these days, I may very well do that. I don't know if I recommend it, but I felt it was good. You don't know what I'm saying? Oh my god, are those all the books? Are those all the books that I've read? If I didn't already ask, what are you guys reading? I want to know. Anyway, those are all the books that I've read in like the past for each month. I like almost stopped filming like halfway through this thing, and I don't know if I'm even gonna put out this video. If it somehow makes it out into the world, and doesn't just like stay on my phone and then eventually get deleted into the abyss. If that somehow doesn't happen, I guess there's only one more thing to say. Happy reading, losers.